Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, it's going great. I'm coming to you from the distant past because in the present, where you are, I'm out of town. So we're doing a little time traveling. I'm just realizing I didn't change my background from the last time we recorded a show. So now I'm going to change my background. So now it's a completely different show than the last time we did a show. So it should be fun and exciting.
This show is, again, as Tom mentioned, he is on vacation right now. He's out of town. So we are recording this on Monday for Thursday, while knowing that there's a bunch of recruiting stuff going on. And so it's very hard to recap the week of visits or preview the week of visits because it hasn't happened yet. And so you start to violate the laws of time and physics. And so you can't actually speak about stuff before it happens as if it has already happened. Except Tom. Yeah, go ahead.
We're going to do an entire episode in future perfect tense. I can't wait.
And Australian accents.
Well, here's the thing. If you want me to do an accent, this all reminds me very much of, like a 30 years old at this point Saturday Night Live sketch where Tom Brokaw is going on vacation. Yes. And he has to pre-record, if Gerald Ford has died, Gerald Ford died at the age of 87 and he was attacked by rabid bears. Like, oh, come on, that's not going to happen. Like we just have to pre-record all of these. Zion Branch committed on Tuesday. Kayla Brown committed on Tuesday after being attacked by rabid badgers.
So that is kind of what we are going to do. We'll have to just assume here in this first portion of the show, by the time you're listening to this, clearly somebody has committed. And Tom, go ahead and tell us who you believe that is. Give us your thoughts on the big commitment for the Buckeyes.
By the time you listen to this, wide receiver prospect Kayla Brown, 2022 out of the state of Illinois, will have committed to the Buckeyes. That is my solemn guarantee to you. Not a guarantee.
So that's a pretty good gift for the Buckeyes. They never get good receivers. So this will be new. It'll be interesting to see how they do with Kayla Brown, who was at one point thought to be a Michigan lock. So that's unfortunate.
Well, it'll be the first time Ohio State has beaten Michigan in the last year.
That's a good point.
Brown is visiting officially on Monday. So as we're recording this, Kayla Brown is right now on campus at Ohio State. As you're listening to this is distant news in the distant past. We've had multiple days of camp since then. And I don't know, maybe the sun has burned out. The Yellowstone supervolcano is going off. I don't know. But as of Monday, Kayla Brown is visiting Ohio State. And as of Thursday, I anticipate maybe he is committed. What about you? Who is going to be the next Buckeye commit to you?
Well, Tom, following Tuesday's visit, 2023 offensive lineman Joshua Padilla out of Wayne will committed. I don't know if that's future present perfect.
That was definitely not perfect. I can tell you that.
So yes, he surprised everybody, surprised nobody by being the first commitment of the 2023 class, top 125-ish lineman out of Wayne, and actually the number 125 player in the 2023 class, and number 6 interior lineman in the nation, and number 4 player in Ohio. Finally getting this 2023 class kicked off. I was not surprised to see it. It was good for the Buckeyes. Tom, what do you think about Padilla being the first guy?
I think if he commits to Kentucky on Wednesday, this show's going to age real poorly. That's what I think. I think that's a very good pick. I think he's someone who, and our recruiting guys, whenever people ask our recruiting guys when is someone going to commit, it's like, I don't do when. Like that is a very consistent, like, I don't do when. They will tell you where someone's going to go, where they're pretty sure someone's going to go, where they're leaning. When they don't do, because it's like that is, you want to be wrong about something, tell people when someone's going to commit. It's like, well, like half the time it's like, well, I'm going to commit on my mom's birthday, I'm going to commit on my birthday, I'm going to commit on my late father's birthday. Like there's always some like, and sometimes it's just like, I have seen enough, I don't need to see anymore. And will Joshua Padilla have his visit on Tuesday? And did he have enough of a visit that it was like, okay, I don't need to see anything else. This is definitely where I want to go. Or was it like, oh, well, I also want to go see somewhere else this weekend. So yes, when is a fool's game for recruiting? So of course, who better to play it than us?
That's right, baby. Were you surprised that neither of the Branch brothers, Zion Branch or Zachariah Branch, committed this week?
I will be slightly surprised. I did consider one or both of them as a possibility. I think there's a possibility that they will stick around and take another. I don't know when, if Zion Branch is going to go visit USC. USC was kind of the other leader for him. He may want to go visit USC before he makes a final decision. It sounded like he was pretty happy with where things stood coming out of that Ohio State visit last week. So, that is absolutely a name that I considered for this exercise. But my assumption is he may do another visit or two before he pulls the trigger. But again, this is literally one of the best ways to look stupid, is to predict the timing of decisions made by teenagers. Yes.
So you weren't surprised.
Perfect. Yes.
if this did or did not happen. And so there's other visits happening this week that have happened as you are listening to this now. One of the visitors that I just wanted to touch on real quickly, 2023 athlete Trayon Webb, a 5-star kid out of Florida. Tom, I read a note on one of his profile pages. His grandfather played at Florida State in the 1980s, and that is terrible. That should not be printed. I should not be reading anything of this sort. Trust me, I'm on the internet. I see a lot of bad stuff. This is the worst thing I have ever seen in my life.
Yeah, earlier this week, I saw something on one of the Twitter accounts that, like the Land of the 80s kind of Twitter's accounts. And it was Ghostbusters, which was released 37 years ago today. And I was like, that's not right, because I remember when that came out. That's not. The Goonies came out this week 35 or 36 years ago. I was like, no. But my younger brother turned 40 this week. So, hey, death comes for us all.
Jeez. Well, that'll do it, folks.
Who was it? Was it Mike Norvell? No, there was some coach who was asked about, I think it was a basketball coach. Someone was asked, can you guarantee that so-and-so is going to be in the lineup in 2 days? And he's like, I can't guarantee any of us will be alive in 2 days. It's like, all right, well, that was bleak. Like, all right, good.
You're dark.
So anyway, so yes, we're all a million years old. Back to you.
And, other guys that are scheduled to visit, but we can't even really discuss it because we don't know if they did, like Shamar Stewart, 5-star defensive end, who was just crystal balled to Miami. So it's like, Tom, do you know if he made the trip 2 days from now?
My sources are indicating that he may have, but it may have been, there may have been a different Stewart on the flight. I just saw the manifest and it just said S Stewart, it's a little too common for me to know for sure. So
this is the best recruiting show.
But I do have sources from the future, which is still pretty good if you think about it.
That's true. You're right. You should use those sometimes.
The other guy who's visiting on the 9th, Richard Young, running back from Florida. He's the top back in the class. He's someone who I talked to Bill Green, I think, about a couple weeks ago on the Morning Scoop, as someone who, you look at him and the film just jumps at you. Oh no, it was Mark Givler, because Mark Givler just went down and met him down in Florida a couple weeks ago when he was on his Southern swing. So yeah, and Mark was super, super impressed with him. And I don't know how many backs Ohio State's taken in 2022. But they took 2 in 2021. If you take 1 in 2022, he basically said, if you're going to take 1 in 2023 and you have your choice, Richard Young is probably the guy you would choose. So, he's up on an unofficial visit. That'll be a big one. They want to, really impress him. And, Tony Alford is someone who I think is very personable, very likable, and has a pretty good track record, both in recruiting and in terms of development. So that'll be a big visit to watch for the Buckeyes. That's on the 9th. So that's Wednesday. So it's already happened, but I can't tell you how it went. But I'm sure it went great because Tony Alford's very nice and personable.
I'm guessing his visit with Trayon Webb the day before went well as well. And the day before that, which I guess is Monday today, discussing or meeting with Justice Haynes, a top 100 running back out of Georgia, which we'll see if he can get, if he actually leaves the state Lehigh Acres for Richard Young. Never heard of the place before. Lehigh Acres, Florida. Lehigh Acres, the high school. It's the first time I've come across that one. I'm just throwing it out there for everybody. Because sometimes when I discover something new, I want other people to discover something new. Like, have you heard of this Mountain Dew? It's tremendous.
If you're wondering why Gert is so energetic this episode, now you know.
So then there's also a bunch of official visits for this coming weekend. The lone commit so far that is Ryan Turner, the Ohio State commit, defensive back, probably a corner, and one guy that a lot of Florida prospects talk highly of, and so keep an eye on. You don't have to keep an eye on him. He's already committed. But other guys like Tommy mentioned Ephesians Price before the show, one of the better names in the class. But there's 10, 11 guys. We'll see how many actually show up because some are already kind of drifting away from likelihood to be Buckeyes. So you wonder if they'll even follow through with it. And then sometimes guys just surprise and like you didn't think they were necessarily all in, and then they get to Ohio State and you start to hear all of the rumblings about, boy, this went really well. And so maybe that'll happen. So we'll, again, let's stick to BuckeyeScoop.com for all of this stuff. The weekend will be plenty of updates as well. We've had weekend-long threads this past weekend, which would have been many days ago by the time you listen to this show. Just a constant stream of updates all weekend about how official visits are going. And those are always very interesting. Anything else on the recruiting front before we hit some of these listener questions?
Well, in addition to the weekend recruiting threads, which were like super interesting all weekend, I mean, really, really just fantastic, really good info coming in from connected to the players, connected with the program. I mean, connected with high school coaches talking about what their players had. I mean, like it was really good information all weekend. We also had a lot of fun last week doing camp day on Tuesday and having like our whole staff out there and posting videos and all that kind of stuff. We're doing that again Tuesday, which is now 2 days in the past for you because, again, time is a flat circle. That, I will tell you that we have 5 people out there. We had 5 people out there tomorrow. And it should be
you had people out there tomorrow?
Yes, we had 5 people out there tomorrow. And it is a lot of fun working with all those guys. And we had so many comments on that thread on the Ask the Insiders board last week about how this is like people were just getting no work done because there was constantly like fascinating stuff going on. And, there's some names to know. There's Padilla visited tomorrow. Trayon Webb visited tomorrow. I mean, there's a bunch of like top 100, top 200 kind of guys who are going to be there. Well, I'm sure be talking to all of them. We'll be sending highlights of all of them. We'll be, our recruiting guys will be sharing analysis of all of them. And you should have by the time you're listening to this, you have already gotten a bonus episode of the Buckeye Weekly podcast where I'm going to talk to Mark and Bill after, kind of at the end of the day, probably just on sort of what we saw. We did drop one of those in the Morning Scoop feed last week as just sort of a bonus episode and got some really, really, really positive feedback on that. People like that a lot. So we're going to let you Buckeye Weekly subscribers enjoy that this week. So hopefully by the time you listen to this, you already did, but that should have dropped tomorrow. So yeah, it should be, man.
I applaud you for all of this.
We are really breaking the fourth wall here. Sometimes we will record a show a day or two early, but we kind of do it in the present-ish tense. Like this is just like, so, sorry, there is no way to fake this. We're just, we may be idiots, but we're honest. So that's good.
Yes. People do know we are honest idiots for sure. And there would be no way to do the show without like being upfront about when it's being recorded, because either we look dumb, like you said, honest idiots, either we look dumb by talking about past, future tenses, or we look dumb and be dishonest by not letting people know when we're actually recording. And again, how could we even convey anything without being honest with the people, which is our motto here. So it's a long motto.
That was our motto.
It always has were.
I think we should do some listener questions.
Please, Tom, let's do this. In present tense.
In present tense.
Or future.
All right. At Stomploo is asking us right now, let us hear your thoughts on Trayvon Henderson. I think he's going to be a beast right out of the gate. I mean, the question with Trayvon Henderson is not how good he is. The question is how quickly he'll be up to speed on blocking and pass protection and all that kind of stuff. And also, this is not J.K. Dobbins walking onto campus in 2017 and Mike Weber being the only other back who was really in his class and then tearing his hamstring in the fall camp. And then it was like, oh, well, I guess he's starting game one because the only other guy is Antonio Williams, and J.K. Dobbins is better than Antonio Williams. So this is a loaded room. You've got 6 scholarship guys in there. I think Trayvon Henderson is probably at least middle of the pack right now. I was very impressed with Trayvon Henderson from what we saw. I think he's going to be very good this year. I also think you're probably starting Master Teague on the road game one. And if you're not, you're probably starting Mayan Williams on the road game one. And, those are probably the first 2 backs in the Minnesota game. I think Henderson is going to play. I think Henderson is probably going to get his first carry in like the second quarter of the Minnesota game. Like he'll touch the ball in the first half of that game. He might touch the ball on the third drive of that game. He might touch the ball, 2 first downs into the first drive of the game. But I don't think he's going to start right away. But I think he's going to be a pretty good immediate impact guy. He's not going to look like J.K. Dobbins in 2019 because no one does, especially as a true freshman. But he should be good, I think. And I think there's a possibility he wins the starting job by the middle of the season. Mid-October, maybe he takes over the starting job, or at least is, the leading carrier. Has the most carries on the team by that point. He or Mayan Williams maybe have surpassed Master Teague by that point. But yeah, I don't know that day one opening carry, Maurice Claret 2002 or J.K. Dobbins 2017 is something that I would necessarily bank on this year.
Yeah, I'm with you. The official stance of this show is we will not be surprised if he is the starting running back by the end of the season. At some point this season has won a job, not just because of 5 other injuries, but by taking the job. I don't see it happening in camp. You mentioned middle of the pack. They can't play 6 guys. They probably can't play 5 right now. I have him number 3, and then he's gonna have to move his way up. But they're also going to give him carries because they've got the best running back in the class. So hey, let's use him and let's see what he can do, because he's not going to be able to win that job unless you are actually giving him an opportunity during games. And I know I've said here in the past, like for me, he's up there with, when you look at his highlights, it's up there with JK and Ezekiel Elliott, as like those 3 to me are the best highlights of running backs in coming to Ohio State that I've seen in a long time. And so that's what I expect from him. Now let's remember, Ezekiel Elliott rushed for 270 yards, 300 yards as a freshman. So we both expect Henderson to do better than that. But just because you're not J.K. Dobbins in year 1 doesn't mean you can't be Ezekiel Elliott in year 2 and year 3. So I don't think it happens immediately, but I do think it happens.
And another thing that is working in his favor is with recruiting the way it is and with the transfer portal the way it is, you want to be able to show guys like, hey, if you're good enough to come in, we're going to play you. Because Ohio State's not going to just guarantee you a starting spot from day one. But they also want to be able to show guys like, hey, if you're good enough to play, like you're going to play right off the bat. Like Jackson Smith-Njigba last year, first game of the season had maybe the highlight reel touchdown of the catch of the year. Like that was, you're not waiting around, you're not deferring to seniority. Like if you're the best dude, you are on the field. And let's go back to Richard Young, the 2023 running back. Like if he's there and it's, well, am I going to get on the field because Trayvon Henderson's still in his 3rd year? If you show that Trayvon Henderson was able to get on the field very early in the year, and you look at the wide receiver unit and the wide receivers, are getting on the field, I think Emeka Egbuka is going to be on the field this year. I think Marvin Harrison's going to be on the field this year. That just tells the guys who are coming in the future, like, yeah, the depth chart is loaded, but if I'm good enough, I'm going to play. And that's, you've seen that with Justin Ross at Clemson. You've seen that with receivers at Alabama. I mean, like if you're good enough, you're going to play. There's no like deferring to seniority and like, well, you just got to wait your turn. Like if you're good enough, there's no reason not to let you play. So
yeah, you warmed up 4th in line, so you are 4th. Just wait until people graduate.
Yeah, no, that is not. I mean, that is a way that people have run teams in the past with the transfer portal being what it is. Like, nope, you can't do that one. The next one on the list is about G. Scott Jr., but I see one here from Langdon Olger. Tony, G. Scott Sr., he had some thoughts on food this weekend on twitter.com. G. Scott Sr., starting to question my friendship with @Tony Gerdeman. Really? You think boneless chicken is anything more than chicken nuggets? GIF of Charles Barkley saying terrible. Tony, you said you didn't want to have, you responded with you didn't want to have this conversation on a Sunday. It is no longer Sunday. I don't know what day it is. It's technically Monday right now, but it's really Thursday for the people. But whatever day it is, it's not Sunday unless they're listening to it on a Sunday. I can't control that. But it is no longer Sunday. Your thoughts, Tony?
I'm sorry. Is there a question there?
Yeah. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts is my thoughts is
my thoughts was
my thoughts are that, again, my stance on chicken wings is well known. That too much effort for not enough reward, and they're messy. And when people say, "Oh, blah blah blah," because that's all I hear from them. And I prefer boneless wings, which are chunks of breast meat. Okay. Now, when people are like, "But wings taste so much better than chicken breast, the boneless wings," and I'm like, "How would you know?" Because you have to drench your chicken wings in sauce and then dip it in a ranch or a blue cheese and then chase it with whatever you're drinking to, I don't know, get the taste of the chicken wing out of your mouth. So don't tell me about how much better your wings taste than a boneless wing, because you can't taste it, because you have, you in order for you to consume this in any quantities, you have to cover it in sauce to hide the flavor that you love so much. That's my thoughts.
I award you 0 points, and may God have mercy on your soul. Next question, Matt Stomploo. Also, G. Scott Jr., I've kept an eye on him since high school, and I really think he's going to be a huge difference maker. What do you think?
I hope you know, Tom, we're going to get like 2-star reviews for the show just because of that question. You're going to drive down our reach for throwing that in there and sabotaging my Twitter mentions and possibly having people show up on my doorstep. So thank you for that. I appreciate that.
I mean, don't blame me. Blame Langdon and Olger. I don't write the questions.
That's true. Yes. Sometimes I like Langdon Olger. Other times I do not. This is one of those times I do not. So G. Scott Jr., I think we're both excited to see what he does, because we know the physical component of what he's capable of, and then to install that at a new position that can be utilized in special ways and can be become an advantage. And you talk about matchups, and you got guys out wide who are going against very talented corners. The matchup for him in the slots as this flexed out tight end, and I don't know how quickly it's going to happen this year. I would like to see it here and there. You know, at least let's get a look at it. But I just think he provides an advantage for his ability combined with who is going to be defending him. And in today's game, defenses are getting better and more versatile. I don't know that they have the versatility to contend with tight ends like this. And people compare, as soon as this move was made, Kyle Pitts was almost trending just because of the comparisons being made on Twitter. And that takes a while, but it gives you an idea of what can be done with an athletic tight end who is more of a wide receiver, but is going to grow into that spot. So I'm looking forward to it. I want to see it used. I don't want to see it talked about. I want to see it. We're talking about it now. I don't want it just to be a topic of conversation. I want it to be a topic of reacting to what we've seen more than let's just speculate.
Why don't we just record a show and we'll just drop it on October 11th, and we'll talk about what we think we will have seen from G. Scott.
That's a good idea.
That's the only kind I have. The interesting thing with him is you've got Jeremy Ruckert at tight end spot. So assuming Jeremy Ruckert's healthy this year, he's very clearly the number one tight end. You're so loaded at wide receiver. I don't know how much 12 personnel you're going to play this year. I think you're going to see a lot of 11 so they can get those, 3 wide receiver formations on the field and keep them on the field as much as possible. So I don't know how many opportunities he's going to get this year if Ruckert's healthy. he may be, he may be the number 2 tight end behind Ruckert, and there is no shame in being the number 2 tight end behind a guy who might be a first or second round draft pick next year, especially if he just moved into the position. There's been some indication that Cade Stover's been really impressing people inside the program, so Cade Stover's another possibility. I think you may see some of it this year. It's just, there's going to be some learning. There's going to be some learning curve there, probably a little bit. And, if he's just going to be a flexed out tight end, then it's more of a wide receiver position. So maybe it's not as much of a learning curve there. But again, that's a spot where you're going to see Ruckert a lot. So how many opportunities is he going to get this year is kind of my question. And if he is on the field, I'm super intrigued by it. Because it's just, again, it's a mismatch. He's got size, he's got speed in a way that you can't, that is not someone that most teams are going to have someone to match up with. And the teams that do have those freak athletes, you have to deal with Chris Olave. You've got to deal with Garrett Wilson. You got to deal with Jackson Smith-Njigba. You got to deal with Mayan Williams or Master Teague or Trayvon Henderson or Steele Chambers or Marcus Crowley or whoever the running back is. You got a million other things you got to worry about. If, G. Scott is the 4th or 5th guy that the defense is worrying about, teams do not have someone that can match up with that, at least during the regular season. You're just not going to have a team that matches up with that. So when he gets out there, I think he's going to have some real opportunities, and if it's, in the second half of the Akron game, for example, if he has 4 catches for 73 yards and 2 touchdowns, that wouldn't surprise me at all. Not a bit. Because I'm sure they want to keep everyone involved and keep guys happy and, keep guys, get guys ready. So if you do have an injury, you have that next guy, the next man up ready to go. So when he gets his opportunities, I'm really, really interested to see what that looks like. And then 2022, when it's Cade Stover and G. Scott, that's a real intriguing tight end spot, because you're replacing a couple wide receivers, and it's still a deep room, but you're replacing probably Wilson and Olave at that point, and then there's more balls to go around.
Another thing we've seen Ohio State tight ends do, sometimes they'll just split all the way out. And now you do that with G. Scott, and you've got him matched out wide with a linebacker or a safety, and you can maneuver the rest of the defense depending on the routes you run. Now maybe it's single coverage with a safety or a linebacker out wide, and there's no other, you don't have to worry about safety help over the middle, or there a linebacker there. And it's just some other things to think about with what they can do with him. That's why there's a lot of possibilities, and I'm looking forward to seeing them actualize, which I think is one of the good things about Ryan Day's offense is he also wants to see things actualize. He doesn't want to just keep talking about it. He wants to do it, and if the players can do it, then he will.
All right, next one from El Suzabo. Was Quinn Ewers really happy with his visit?
Tom, if we say yes and he has decommitted by the time this show airs,
everything will have been burned down if he decommits by the time this show runs. So that will be the least of our problems. I think. Every indication was he was extremely happy with his visit. And how much do you want to read into what he's posting on Twitter? But I think the indications from within the program were that he was very happy with his visit. The indications from what he posted on Twitter were that he was very happy with his visit. I don't think I've necessarily seen an interview with him since he got back, but I don't think there's any real concern there at all. And, you go not only the Ohio State piece, Ryan Day is, Ryan Day is pretty darn good at developing quarterbacks, and Corey Dennis is doing a pretty good job with quarterbacks. And there is a lot to like at Ohio State. I'm sure the NIL stuff that they talk to him about is probably pretty appealing. And, a lot of the seats are full for quarterback. Not that teams wouldn't make room for Quinn Ewers, but it's, Texas has their guy for 2022. Clemson has their guy for 2022. Alabama has their guy for 2022. Yes, Texas would probably take Quinn Ewers if, potentially not keep Malik Murphy in their class if Quinn Ewers came begging back to them that he really wanted to go to Texas again. But I don't think that's really going to happen. And I don't think Texas is really going to be pushing him to come, because they have their guy now. And I think you're looking for something to worry about if you're worrying about will Quinn Ewers stick with his Ohio State commitment.
Yep. And there's been zero indication that there are any issues. And he continues to, show no signs. And so, yeah, exactly. There's nothing to worry about there. There's plenty of other things to worry about, Tom. Actually, there's not a lot to worry about at Ohio State anymore.
Well, you don't know what happened Tuesday and Wednesday.
That's true. We'll revisit that on next Tuesday's show.
Last one from @_retrobud with Bud with 2 Ds. Predict a starting lineup using only the 2021 and 2022 classes. Now, I'm took this to mean currently committed as of the time we are recording players. So that's okay. Go ahead. You want to go position by position? What do you want to do?
Well, this to me just feels like a way of like saying, is it going to be Quinn Ewers or is it going to be Kyle McCord? Like, am I supposed to be choosing which guy I would start or which guy we think it would be? Maybe we leave that up to interpretation. It's hard for me to. There's so much buzz around Quinn Ewers, but Kyle McCord is here and he's doing stuff. So for me at quarterback, I'm taking McCord right now because he's here. And also I don't know if I'm really comfortable with the amount of hype that Quinn Ewers is receiving, or just, I don't want to just put him on a pedestal already. Like, I don't know that that's healthy for him. I don't know that he hasn't done anything at Ohio State yet. So for me, I'm going to go side with the guy who has at least been here in practice.
Yeah, and I think generally we tend both towards the more conservative side of evaluation of new guys before you actually see them on the field. I mean, go back and listen to our 2019 shows about Justin Fields, and it was like we saw him in spring and we knew the arm talent was there, and you could see that, you could see the ability, and you knew he was a smart kid. But it was like, every week it was like, okay, 250 yards, maybe throws an interception. Like, it's okay. It's fine. He's going to be learning. This is his first year starting. And he kept exceeding the expectations. This year, again, like, I don't think either of us are predicting like Dwayne Haskins level passing stats for CJ Stroud. And that's fine. Like, it's going to be okay. Like, or whoever it is, whether maybe it's Kyle McCord, like whoever, but I don't, I think we both tend towards the, like, keep the expectations as reasonable as possible, which is why when we talk about Jack Sawyer, it's like, oh, you should pay attention, because we don't normally say this about freshmen. But yeah, I'm with you. I think you probably have to side with McCord here, just because, this is not, someone coming in and trying to unseat a 3-star guy who has a year of experience on him. Like, Kyle McCord was really impressive this spring as an early enrollee freshman. The arm talent's there. You can see it. Like, he had, the first drive of the game, he just heaved one downfield, and it was like, oh, okay. So there's the arm talent. All right, good. Check that off the list. I think in everyone's best interest probably to have Kyle McCord be a little bit of a head start there, in terms of eligibility, and not having the guy who's younger start and then you lose the older guy. So yeah, I think there's a bunch of reasons to think it's Kyle McCord there.
Maybe we view this as the 2022 starting lineup from these two classes. Mm-hmm. And so that would make, Kyle McCord the favorite there, because he'd have a year under his belt. And so correct. I think maybe that's how I'm going to approach it, is not everybody from these two classes will be starting in 2023. There will be some for 2022. There'll be some 2020 guys, some 2019 guys, but we're going to stick to the question at hand, Tom, because that's what I do best.
Mm-hmm. And technically Quinn Ewers isn't eligible since he hasn't graduated high school. So if we're doing a 2021, then it's an easy decision.
Although technically he's from Texas, so they don't need to graduate high school there.
I'm not going to ask you to show your work on that one. That's fine. I'm just going to accept it with a smile. Running back Trayvon Henderson. I think that's, I think that's an easy one. Wide receiver is an interesting one, because I went with a 3 wide receiver set, and I still was like, well, Emeka Egbuka, Marvin Harrison Jr. And then, Jaden Ballard has a year of experience. Kayla Burton is higher ranked. I've seen Jaden Ballard, but I haven't seen a lot of Jaden Ballard. I think Jaden Ballard can be really good. I haven't seen Kayla Burton, so I guess I have to side with Jaden Ballard because of what I have seen in person, and I think it's going to be pretty good. But, if you put Kayla Burton here third, I wouldn't necessarily fight you about it.
Yeah, like the way I view it is Emeka Egbuka is going to be in the slot. Marvin Harrison will be the X. I know they've talked to Keon Grays about being in the slot as well, so he's immediately behind. So then it's like Jaden Ballard at the Z, Kayla Burton at the Z. Now, when people talk about Kayla Burton and mention like some sort of a combination between Garrett Wilson and Jackson Smith and Jigba, Tom, for me,
Is that good? That sounds good. Is that good?
That's going to be hard for me to leave out of the lineup. And even knowing like Jaden Ballard could certainly blow up in year 2 as just a supreme athlete in that role as the deep threat guy. But Ballard is probably the correct answer. The more intriguing answer for me then would be Caleb Burton, but maybe he's like the guy who, as a freshman, early on, the Ohio State freshman, he's in the rotation, but then by the end of the season, like he's one of the top 3.
Yeah, and that seems perfectly reasonable. Essentially the way we were talking about Trayvon Henderson earlier in the show, that could very well be what he would be in this scenario. So, yeah, I don't think there's necessarily a wrong answer there between those two guys.
Tight end,
I have Sam Hart based on seniority because we saw a little bit of Sam Hart in practice this spring, not a whole heck of a lot, and then the other 2 guys would be freshmen at that point. So you defer to seniority there.
Yeah, I'm with you. They're bringing in 2, obviously Benji Gosnell and Bennett Christian in 2022, but the tight end at Ohio State is such a developmental position that whoever has the most development is going to be the guy. And so I'm with you, Sam Hart, and getting here early has helped as well.
For sure. Offensive line is particularly tricky because they've only taken 4 guys total from these 2 classes. So, before the show, you suggested they take one of the tight ends and bulk them up, which, I mean, sure. I think Taker Shabola and Zen Mahalski are your tackles, and Ben Chrisman and Donovan Jackson are your guards. And then I don't know who's playing center, I guess. I don't, I'm sure they're going to recruit another offensive lineman for 2022. So eventually this question will work itself out.
You think so? You think they're going to go get some more offensive linemen in 2022 when they know they already have what, 2, 1?
Yes, they already have 1. Now, offensive line, this is an important thing to know. Offensive line is not like quarterback. You don't generally just take 1 per class, because what happens then is if you have a 5th-year senior, then you have exactly 1 line. If you just take one offensive lineman per year, that's actually pretty important to have more than 5 guys on your roster. So, and
you better hit 100%. Like you better no misses there,
and no one gets hurt. Like real big knee braces on those guys at that point. Real big
brace.
Yes,
like a Forrest Gump type of thing.
Like an Iron Man. Like basically, you've got to go out there like Iron Man.
Perfect. Defensive line is not that much different either. Like in terms of this team right now. Not a lot of offensive linemen, defensive linemen, not a lot either. So this is a pretty easy one.
It is. And defensive ends, Jack Sawyer, I think, is the easy one. That's the free space in the bingo card.
Yes.
I moved Gabe Powers down from linebacker to defensive end. That's something that I know Mark Givler has talked about a bunch as a possibility for him. Because, again, we're recording this on Monday. So JT Tuamaloa is still uncommitted. Omari Abor is still uncommitted at this point. Either of those guys obviously would slide into that spot as the second defensive end there. But as of the time we're recording this, nothing has happened with either of those guys. So, that it's a little bit of a default answer there.
Yeah, and then you've got Tyleek Williams and Mike Hall as the defensive tackles, and everybody's happy perfectly. Yep. And it's actually not a bad defensive line group. I really like the possibilities here at linebacker, Tom. I'm going with Reed Carrico as my middle linebacker, and then CJ Hicks as my will.
That's exactly what I have. Yeah.
And then, I'll just let those 2 go and do whatever they want to do. And then whoever Ohio State signs along with, you've already moved Gabe Powers down. So, I think he can also be kind of your run stuffing Sam if you need be, but like those 2, I like those.
That's exactly what I had. Carrico at the mic, Hicks at the will, and I'm playing a base 2 linebacker defense, and we're playing a bullet. So Jalen Johnson is my bullet, and then he's the 3rd linebacker, but he's not a linebacker; he's a bullet.
Yeah, and I don't know that there are no other bullets right now. I think we talked about in the last show that there's probably maybe something coming there, but that's not here yet. So Jalen Johnson is that it. Now the secondary time there's a lot of guys to choose from. What do you have?
Well, I have 5 guys listed here at cornerback, so we're playing a rather untraditional defense here.
Interesting.
I think your top 2 are probably Jordan Hancock, J.K. Johnson, just because they are the guys. And again, we didn't get to see them this spring, so it's all a little bit of an unknown right now. But those guys are coming in with seniority, and then after them, Jaheim Singletary, Ryan Turner, Denzel Burke. I mean, any of those guys, like Burke could be the slot guy, and Jaheim Singletary and Ryan Turner, both taller guys, could be, outside. Maybe it's a 4 cornerback rotation, and Denzel Burke is playing in the slot. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities here.
There are so many possibilities, and Ryan Turner, these underrated guys like Ryan Turner and Kai Stokes are the kind of guys that show up at camp and are Malcolm Jenkins types, where they're advanced and underranked, and they have this determination, and they just almost come out of nowhere and become these productive players. But where is Jair Brown? Is he like some of these corners are going to be a cover safety? Jansen Dunn, like Andre Turrentine could be your cover safety. It's impossible, Tom, to like. I can go ahead and say like, okay, we'll have a 3-man rotation at corner with Hancock and J.K. Johnson and Jaheim Singletary. Where does that put Ryan Turner? Where does that put Denzel Burke? You need a nickel. You need a cover safety. Yeah, and we're not like Jansen Dunn as your free safety. Does he have any competition there? I don't care for this question when it comes to the secondary. There's just so many options.
Yeah, I like the offensive line thing better because it's like it's a very clean, easy answer, and it's not my fault that there's not a better answer. Like here, it's just like, I don't know, they've recruited 74 defensive backs in the last 2 classes. So really, this is Taver Johnson's fault, not my fault, because this is why they have to do all this makeup, because Taver Johnson didn't recruit enough defensive backs a couple of years ago. So yeah, this is one of these questions where I think there's an answer, but the answer is basically at this point just sort of deferring to recruiting rankings and seniority. Yeah. So like Jordan Hancock, J.K. Johnson, and Jaheim Singletary. Sure. Okay. Ryan Turner, like people are very high in Ryan Turner. Dominique Smith just stood next to Ryan Turner and said he's listed at 6 foot and he might actually be taller than that, might actually be 6'1". Because anytime you see a corner listed at 6 feet tall, it's always like, so he's 5'10" then. Apparently not. Apparently he is a legit 6 foot or perhaps even more than that. So, I mean, and these are guys that people are, Kai Stokes, Ryan Turner, like these are guys that people are talking up, that are people are really impressed with, that I think there's a lot of optimism about from the Ohio State side of things. So there are plenty of good options here, which is not something you've always been able to say about Ohio State defensive backfields of recent vintage.
No, you haven't. Even like Jair Brown, the number 115 player in the nation. And he's like kind of an afterthought because he's been committed for a while and there's been some wishy-washiness there. But he also seemed to enjoy his visit and seems to have been re-energized, re-solidified this past weekend. So that was good to see. And so that is that's a lot on that question. That's maybe could have been a show of its own, but probably shouldn't have been. Because it ends with the secondary. You're like, I don't know. My punter, Jesse Murko.
Quite right.
What a downer to end the show with, Tom. Just a 2-word impression. Didn't even get a full sentence out of you.
I didn't have anything planned. I panicked. I'm sorry.
Understood. Anything else before we get out of here?
No, I just hope everything is still good in the world by the time you're listening to this. You haven't, no alien invasions or, I don't know. What else could happen? Camp could have been canceled.
Don't speak it into existence.
No, I'm sure. I think I speak for all of us when I could say, what could possibly have gone wrong? Come on, it's 3 days. What could possibly have gone wrong?
True.
What are the odds this show's outdated by the time anyone hears it? None. No possibility. No possibility.
None odds.
Ryan Day, the new manager of the Cincinnati Reds. Like, what? How did it? What? That doesn't even make sense.
They still ain't going to win.
Yeah.
God, now there's another 2-star review. Ripping on the Reds. Thanks, Tom. That's on you. Dang it. Anyway, let's go ahead and wrap this show up. I want to thank everybody for listening. Thank you guys for watching. Reminder to check out BuckeyeScoop.com. It's, as you saw the last couple of days with visits, it gets pretty crazy there. It's a fun time. And then, of course, you've got some official visits coming up this weekend. It's going to be a pretty awesome month, as you already know and as you're seeing. So I invite you to become a member and thank all of you who are currently members. And check out the rest of the shows on our network. We got Sleepcast on Mondays. Gives in the Bank are going to be getting back into this, I believe, here at some point. And I just, again, if you haven't gone back to their top 100, their 10 shows, 10 show breakdown of their top one, the Scoop 100, I recommend you do that. Silver Bullets podcast will be here on Wednesdays coming up. And Dominic Smith has always got some outstanding guests from down in Florida, recruiting guys, recruits. Alex Gleitman, of course, always has outstanding guests as well. And he, Kirk just randomly pops up with, Scoop World Order. Oh, here's Jim Tressel's on this week. Urban Meyer's on this week. And, who knows what's going to be coming up from him next. So again, subscribe via the YouTube page, youtube.com/Buckeye Scoop. Hit the subscribe. You get notified when all of these podcasts drop, and not just the podcast, but the camp highlights that are going on, interviews with players, coaches, all that sort of stuff. Have I covered it all, Tom? Oh, the morning scoop. Yes, go ahead.
Yes, the morning scoop. Yes, I was. You know what? The funny thing is, you're going through the list, and I'm like, oh, he forgot Around the Oval. Better remind him about Around the Oval. It's like, oh yes, there's a morning show that I've done 260 episodes of. Yes, the morning scoop. Yes, this. But let's see. By the time you listen to this, you will have heard. Monday was the Minnesota preview, which we mentioned on last show. Tuesday will be Alex Gleitman talking about the last weekend's visitors and, the commitments that we just talked about haven't happened yet, but maybe they'll have happened by the time I talk to Alex later tonight. So that'll be fun. Wednesday will be a camp review day with Bill and Mark sharing kind of what we saw out at the Ohio State camp on Tuesday. Thursday's show will be the offense for Oregon, talking to James Crepia of the Oregonian and the Fox Sports Radio Eugene. We had a long show, had a great conversation with him. He will go into some really, really good depth about what is maybe the most intriguing game on Ohio State's schedule this year. That is going to be a fantastic game. Oregon has a lot of guys back, and their starting quarterback is a guy who transferred from Boston College. So he's actually has starting experience in the Power Five. He just doesn't have much starting experience at Oregon. So that's going to be an interesting one. And then Friday will be kind of the defense for Oregon, and some other, kind of broader conversations about Oregon football and the Pac-12 and all that kind of stuff. So that is the week of the morning scoop. I know you always like to try and ambush me and ask me who's going to be on the following day's show. Sorry, man. Even though we're doing this 3 days in advance, I already know the whole week. Don't ask me about next week. I probably have to have a Tulsa person on at some point to do a Tulsa preview, but we'll probably talk about the previous weekend's recruiting. There is a lot to talk about right now. So no shortage of content right now for the morning scoop.
My ask of you just said you'll have to have a Tulsa person on. Just have a random Tulsa person on. Not even somebody who covers the game, just a random Tulsa person.
Just open the Tulsa phone book and just
Navin R. Johnson.
I'm someone.
All right. Thank you all for listening, and we will talk to you next week.